Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today we're reviewing for you Yooka-Replaylee on the Nintendo Switch 2. This review was originally written by the lovely Mitch Vogel and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. 11, and that's not a mistake. 11 years ago, a bunch of X-Rare staff formed a new studio called Playtonic to make a game called Yooka-Laylee, a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie that promised to skillfully carry the 3D platforming torch. Yet, when the game actually launched in 2017, following an incredibly successful Kickstarter campaign, it didn't fully deliver on that promise. Players were met with a passionately crafted but somewhat janky experience that some absolutely loved, and others, hated. And this unsurprisingly resulted in the titular duo having a mixed reception overall. Now, Playtonic has decided to make things right with Yooka-Replaylee, and we're happy to report that the team has done an excellent job of delivering on that original promise. But first off, what exactly is Yooka-Replaylee? Although it's debatable whether this qualifies as a full-blown remake of the original, it's immediately apparent that this goes far beyond a mere remaster that simply improves performance and visuals. Yooka-Laylee was the epitome of a flawed gem, and Playtonic clearly took to heart the criticism the initial release received and used it to make this second pass a much stronger showing. Things like tighter controls, fast travel, a map, and loads more collectibles change up the gameplay experience in some important and very positive ways, rounding off those rougher edges that cause some players to bounce off the original. The overall structure remains unchanged, as the titular duo explores the central hub and its 5 worlds in search of dozens of pages, a certain number of which is needed to unlock the next world in the progression. Once you drop into a world, there are around 50 pages scattered throughout the environment to collect, which can be picked up in whatever order you see fit. Exploration is expedited and a lot smoother this time around, because our heroes have not only had their moveset retooled to feel much smoother, but also have all the abilities unlocked from the beginning. The devs have also more than doubled the total page count for this release, which has gone a long way to making the worlds feel far less empty. The environments are still pretty spacious, however, especially given that they're now in their default expanded state. To make them feel less daunting still, Playtonic added a cute little bookmark NPC named Mark, who you can not only fast travel to at various points on the map, but also pay to reveal the location of pages you haven't yet found. We weren't exactly disappointed by the design and depth of the worlds in the initial release, but the work Playtonic has done here to streamline traversal and progression through them has absolutely changed them for the better. In addition to pages, there are also oodles of coins and quills scattered in each level. The former can be traded to Vendy in exchange for equipable tonics that modify difficulty settings and myriad cosmetic changes, while the latter can be traded to Trouser for things like expanding your energy bar, adding a tonic slot, and even increasing your hit points. Overall, we're really pleased at how thoughtfully they balance the economy here. Even finding these currency collectibles feels exciting due to the sheer variety of stuff you can purchase. Taking a step back and seeing all these gameplay changes really puts into perspective how much effort Playtonic put in to polish and improve their debut release. Yooka-Laylee was never a bad game, but it had some quirks and flaws that occasionally got in the way of fun, and just about every one of those drawbacks has been modified or addressed here in some way. We've seen it argued that Playtonic would have been better served putting such effort into a true sequel, but in truth, we'd say that the changes here bring this duo's first 3D entry up to par, at least in terms of quality, with Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair. Adding to that, a lush, real-life orchestral recording of the original soundtrack only adds to that feeling of quality. As far as visuals are concerned, Yooka-Replaylee is a clear improvement on the predecessor, but a little less so with this Switch 2 port. The good news is that the environments feature much richer detail and far better lighting, giving them a far more vibrant and alluring atmosphere compared to the occasionally flat presentation of the original. The bad news? The frame rate is capped at a disappointing but mostly stable 30 frames a second, which can make the action look a little bit choppy at times. The devs have said that they're looking into a potential post-launch performance boost after limited time with the Switch Switch 2 dev kits restricted their ability to design for it, but right now it's still up in the air whether that patch will ever materialize. We also encountered a few bugs in our playthrough that ranged from amusing to annoying. We've had the audio drop out, we've had a hard crash, and Mitch was even able to break out of bounds at one point. Realistically though, hiccups like this weren't all too common in our time, but they weren't also exactly uncommon either. We're hoping that the team will address these at some point after launch. Yooka-Replaylee in most ways feels like the game that Yooka-Laylee was always meant to be. The core experience has remained the same, but much has been added or tweaked to make for a significantly more confident and streamlined experience. Though the technical issues hold it back a bit, at least on Switch 2 at launch, this is still a clear improvement over the original, and a game that no fan of 3D platforming should be seen to miss out on. Even if you played the original to completion, we'd say Yooka-Replaylee is still very much worth your time and money. Yooka-Replaylee, you're getting an 8 out of 10 from us. You've reached the end of the review, and that means it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and I've got to be completely honest, cards on the table. I was not a massive fan of Yooka-Laylee. I was really excited for it, I backed it on Kickstarter and everything, I loved the idea, but the end result just didn't quite hit the mark for me. It felt open and barren, and there was just a lot of stuff that felt underdeveloped at the time, and that's been completely rectified with this version, I am very pleased to say. This is... Mitch put it well, it's what the original should have been originally. There's obviously the big stuff like loads more pages, more stuff to do, the worlds being automatically expanded is a big deal because that never really worked, you go into like a small version, then you'd have to go out, expand it, and then go back in. I understand what they were going for, but it never really worked. I just wanted to go in the level and do stuff. But it's also the small changes, things like there's loads more animation, like the coins, the quids as they're called. They're everywhere, which immediately seems like, they're really easy to come by. And they are, and you're gonna need a lot of them. But what they're used for is not specifically to have another currency, by itself. It's to show where you're supposed to go. It's to give the player direction and sort of corral them and sort of go, maybe you should go this way. And it leads you to places that I'm not saying you wouldn't have found in the original, but it just sort of gives you that little nudge. And it's a really nice design feature. Yeah, it's not like it's an original idea. It's like in every single Mario game ever. But even so, it's very, very welcome here. One of the biggest changes for me, though, apart from the fact that every time you get a pagey, you get an animation, which that was my biggest problem with Banjo-Tooie, is the way that Yooka and Laylee move. It is so much more responsive to the point that at certain times, I don't want to say it makes the platforming, sort of too easy, but it is... obviously, the levels and a lot of the challenges were designed with the old controls in mind, which were a little bit sort of hit and miss, a little bit sloppy, unresponsive, so it makes the game, I would say, easier overall. There's still plenty of challenge to be found if you look for it, but it is just so refreshing to get hold of it and go, oh my god, the moment I picked up the controller and started controlling, I was like... this is doing a lot. But also just like there's context to stuff. There's much more of an introduction now, there's more cutscenes, and they don't get in the way. As far as I know, there are no quizzes anymore, which is a good thing. Obviously, we all loved Grunty's Furnace Fun, but the reason it was so well beloved back then is because it was such a surprise, nobody expected it, and so to go in expecting it doesn't really work in the same way here, so I'm actually quite pleased they ditched it, even though it is something that's so inherently Banjo. It's just, I don't know, it just feels better without it. I'm an absolute sucker for this game now, I really am. This is a phenomenal improvement. If you liked the idea of Yooka-Laylee, but you didn't get along with the game per se, seriously, get hold of this. I am very confident you'll be a very happy bean.